Mexico is still one of the countries of America with the highest rating of violence against women for gender issues and highest numbers of femicides that go unpunished most of the time, according to the National Commission of Human Rights Mexico in 2017, because these are not investigated. According to the NDiary, National Survey on the Dynamics of Relationships in Homes, in 2016, of the 46.5 million of women between 15 and 35 years old who lived in the country of Mexico, the 66.1% have suffered, at least, one incident of emotional, economic, physical or sexual violence in public and private spaces, such as their homes with their families or partner and in parks or public transport. The 43.9% of women have been assaulted by their couples in some time of their life together. Mexico has created various public institutions such as the gender units in the judiciary power, but those institutions have been controlled by ONGs like X. This ONG made a research in 2016 to evaluate the functionality of these mechanisms. This study showed that only 19 had a work plan and, from these just 5 had gender indicators. Another organism which belongs to the government is the Secretary of Public Education. This one doesn't have care protocols to the gender violence in schools and public politics for prevention, attention, sanction and eradication of gender violence in neither of the schools from Mexico. This shows that the Mexican government has a weak institutional model to protect women from their aggressors. According to the Article 1 of the Political Constitution of United States of Mexico, all the laws of the people are guaranteed in that Constitution and in other legal mechanisms. The exercise of them cannot be restricted or suspended, except in the cases and under the conditions that this Constitution establishes. That is why all discrimination motivated by ethnic or national origin, gender, age, disabilities, social status, health conditions, religion, opinions, sexual preferences, marital status or any other that violates dignity is prohibited, human and is intended to nullify or impair the rights and freedoms of people. In this right we can see that the Mexican state establishes one important base to the non-discrimination, especially with part of gender, sexual preferences. We can see in the Article 34 of Constitution that says that all men and women who, having the quality of Mexicans, have to follow 2 requirements to become a citizen of the Republic. First, to have completed 18 years, and, second, to have an honest way of living. Here in this right we can see that it only considers 2 types of genders, the female and the masculine, because of the all men and women. Maybe for some people this would not be a problem, but it is better to open this right and incorporate a better world to summarize the idea of people, like citizen. In the part of an honest way of living, is too ambiguous, arbitrary and moralistic, because for example, a sexual worker could not be considered a person who does have an honest way of living or a thief. All the people needs to be considered a citizen in their own cities to protect them with their laws. In this convention and in the Art 11 of the General Law on Women's Access to a Life Free of Violence make allusion to discrimination against women in the workplace, establishing that it constitutes workplace violence and that it is the obligation of the state's parties to take all appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination against women. Both articles are in accordance with the federal labor law, since said law mentions substantive equality is the one achieved by eliminating discrimination against women who impair or nullify the recognition, enjoyment or exercise of your human rights and freedoms fundamental in the workplace. Assumes access to the same opportunities, considering the biological, social and cultural differences of women and men. However, by accepting these laws, the government seeks to reduce this type of inequality. The provisions of the CETFCM also mentions that the state's parties will take all appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination against women to guarantee them equal rights with men in the field of education and, in particular, to guarantee, on the basis of equality of men and women, this equality will be guaranteed in preschool, general, technical, professional and higher technical education, as well as in all kinds of vocational training. Violence is in the homes of women and LGBTI+ people, provided by their couples, fathers, mothers, brothers, all the family. More than half of the country's women population is or has been discriminated against due to their sex. The violence against women is a widespread social practice and a problem that crosses the Mexican country. 63 out of 100 women aged 15 and over have experienced at least an act of violence of any kind, be it emotional, physical, sexual, economic, patrimonial violence, or labor discrimination. Femicides are crimes in that women are killed for being women. Usually these murders are committed with greater violence. The murderers use means that produce more pain and prolong the agony of the victim. The government's efforts to control this problem have been non-existent. These are not enough to completely eradicate the problem. We can see that through all the news from Mexico, with headlines like, "From Ingrid to Fatima, X-ray of femicides in Mexico, a national emergency." Mexico registered 1,006 victims of femicide in 2019, according to official figures that, according to experts, could be greater since there are deficiencies to typify crime according to El Universo, 2020. The solutions for this discrimination are: it is necessary to promote a cultural change that favors the general respect towards women and their rights. Start with the right to a life free of violence and non-discrimination to bring about changes in the lives of the women. It is essential to promote the right to equality and non-discrimination in the world of work. Strategies to eliminate and punish any form of discrimination against women in any social sphere. Promote the implementation of public policies that guarantee the women's safety in both public and private spaces. The Observatory of Trans Murdered People identifies Mexico as the second country in the world, with the highest number of members of LGBTI+. LGBTI+ people. The CHI report describes the multiple forms of lethal and non-lethal violence against LGBTI+ people, violations of the right to life, extrajudicial acts committed by state actors and murders, committed by non-state actors. Although violence against LGBTI+ people is exerted both by state actors as non-states, including acts of torture, inhuman or degrading treatment, excessive use of force, illegal and arbitrary arrests and other forms of abuse. Violence due to public displays of affection between people of the same sex. Same-sex couples are generally attacked for publicly demonstrating their affection, holding hands, hugging, or kissing. Solutions: design and implement policies and programs to eliminate stereotypes and discrimination against LGBTI+ people. Take comprehensive measures to promote respect for the rights of LGBTI+ people and the social acceptance of the diversity of sexual orientations, gender identities. Despite current public policies, women human rights defenders, and lesbian and bisexual defenders continue to be threatened and suffer different types of violence including sexual violence, especially if they get involved with defending sexual and reproductive rights. Regarding abused women, it was observed that discrimination against them in Mexico have been victims in all social spheres like school, work, home, streets, in politics, in scientific and technological activities, among many other spaces. This violence has been exerted by a great variety of aggressors: partner, husband, or boyfriend, a relative, a colleague from school or work, school, or labor authorities, or even strangers. Women have been victims worldwide of femicides. Regarding the people who make up the LGBTQ+ group, we can see that there are too many ways to violate them rights, such as violence due to affection between people of the same sex in public places. Other example is when there is death by these people, the family does not go to file a complaint due to fear of being discriminated against for having a relative with a different sexual orientation. The Mexican state, civil society and the public sector must understand that it is necessary to expand research in these populations. Needs to carry out three special changes: a legal, social, and state change. The social part is going to be the hardest one, because it is intimately linked with the state's role. First, the society needs to start working for a change and stop normalizing the violence against women and LGBTI+. Start destroying some stereotypes like the macho and the form of seeing women as a tool or a men's thing. Mexicans need to educate by themselves and try to get away from old beliefs about what is normal, moral, correct or incorrect. Mexican society and the Mexican government need to recognize that there is a problem with gender violence. The government needs to take affirmative actions in order to control this violence. One of this must be provide the state institutions that are dedicated to the fight against gender violence, with a solid regulatory framework, operating guidelines and an operational annual plan. They must be constituted as decentralized bodies with legal personality, their own assets and budgetary independence to increase its institutional strength. It is necessary that people have selection criteria that include academic training and professional experience in a gender and human rights perspective, as well as guarantee mechanisms for the professionalization and constant evaluation of personnel. Also effectively train legal operators so that when processing cases they incorporate the perspective of gender. Raise awareness among legal operators on the importance of granting protection measures as part of the due diligence obligations.